Okay, welcome to the May 21, 2025 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting with Environmental Quality Commission members, city staff, and members of the public. Which is great. We'll start with roll call. I'd like to introduce staff and EQC members present. In the room, we have Chair McKenna, Commissioners Angel, Headley, Hernandez, and Meyer. Staff present includes Sustainability Manager Rachel Lunder and Management Analyst 2, Ori Paz. Ms. Lunder, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I will share our procedures for public comment this evening. If you are in the room and you would like to make public comment, you can grab a comment card on that ledge, or we can hand one to you, and you can return it to Ori or myself. If you are online, you can press the raise hand button, which is either at the bottom of your screen or to the right of your name, depending on your device, or you can press *9 if you're calling in, and we will be able to unmute you. There will be opportunity at the top of the meeting for public comment on items not on the agenda, and then each agenda item will have time for public comment. So I think I'll leave it there, Chair, and return the meeting to you.
Great, thank you. Under public comment, the public may address the Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. While you are not required to provide your name or city of residence, it is helpful. The Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment, other than to provide general information. Sustainability Manager Lunder, please call for public comment.
Sure. I'd like to open up public comment for items not on the agenda. If you're in the room, you can return your public speaking card to me. If you are calling in, you can press *9. And if you're joining via Zoom, you can hit the raise hand button. And I see 3 cards in the room. And I don't see any hands online yet. So we'll start with the cards in the room. We'll start with Jocelyn and Naya Galvan. And you'll pass? Okay. And then Brian Schmidt, did you want to make your public comment?
Yeah, just very briefly, Brian Schmidt from Menlo Spark, and we had a chance to introduce, mainly I wanted to introduce Jocelyn, we had a chance to do that briefly before the meeting. Just want to say that Menlo Spark views itself as a partner whenever possible with the city of Menlo Park, working on its climate goals, and we will continue to do that as much as we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. All right, our next public comment is from Julia, and Julia, you have slides that I'll share right now. And then noting that I will be able to share the time ticker, so maybe around like 6:07 or so, we'll check in if you're still going. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I hope you're all doing well. I'm Julia Zeitlin. I'm a freshman at Stanford University and coordinator of the 2024-2025 Bay Area Heat Mapping Campaign. I'm also a resident of Palo Alto. Next slide, please. So last year, the Palo Alto Student Climate Coalition led a heat mapping campaign through the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration's Urban Heat Island Mapping Initiative. And together with local cities, community organizations, and volunteers, we were able to map the distribution of extreme heat throughout Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, and Menlo Park. We officially partnered with the City of Palo Alto, the City of East Palo Alto, Bellhaven Action, and former Mayor of Menlo Park, Councilmember Cecilia Taylor. And so on one of the hottest days of the year, we had a total of 30 volunteers drive a total of 180 miles from sunrise to sunset to collect heat, temperature, and location data with these heat sensors that they attach to their car door windows. Slide, please. And so we've compiled this data and created these visual heat maps of morning, afternoon, and evening for all 3 cities. Next slide. And so the darker areas of red on the map indicate the highest temperatures. And what we found, which is what we expected, is that due to the urban heat island effect, most of these hotspots that we found are located in more dense urban areas where there's lots of concrete and asphalt, that's impervious surfaces that can trap and store and radiate this heat. And so we also noticed that areas that are cooler, the blue areas they have the cooling effect from the bay as well as lots of trees nearby that provide shade. Next slide, please. So I'm really excited to announce that our data collection effort is now being transformed into a Stanford-affiliated organization called the Cool Cities Coalition. And we're very excited to be taking this data and then trying to implement cooling solutions in the areas that need it most based on the information that we collected. And so we're planning to conduct a tree planting campaign, bringing all 3 cities together in Belhaven and Menlo Park with Canopy. And we're planning to conduct this tree planting campaign in October. And we're really excited about the opportunity to bring the community together and to work on an area that our maps identified as high risk. I'd also like to note that we are organizing a heat summit this summer, an event aimed at bringing Bay Area cities together to discuss and share best practices on how we can build resilience against the rising threat of extreme heat. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to conclude my comment by asking you all, the commissioners in the community, if you'd be interested in further collaborating on this work and partnering with the Cool Cities Coalition to take this data and implement some cooling solutions in areas that we think will benefit the city of Menlo Park. I'd also like to officially invite you all to the heat summit that we're organizing this summer, as well as the tree planting campaign with Canopy. Thank you.
I want to talk to you after.
Yes.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, and I will make one last call for public comment for items not on the agenda. Looks like there's no more cards in the room and there's no hands raised, so we can close public comment. And I'll return the meeting to you if you want to respond to any public comment that's
Okay.
appropriate.
Yeah, thank you for the public comments, and I for one can say I'd be happy to partner with you and bring whatever value I can personally, and I'll let other commissioners speak for themselves, but thank you for the presentation and thank you for your work. Do I leave it open to other commissioners to comment, or probably not? Yeah, okay. So we'll move on to regular business. Item D1, approve the April 16th, 2025 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. Are there any clarifying questions from the EQC before taking public comment? Should I clarify now or later, that one item?
Oh, you can clarify now.
Yeah, so I did notice in the work plan, it shows that the Climate Change Resilience and Adaptation Subcommittee will be making a presentation in March of 2025. So we probably should change that to TBD.
Was on the work plan or the discussion minutes?
Where's this? Under Environmental Quality Commission agenda topics, fiscal year 2025.
Okay, in the work plan. Okay.
It lists the ad hoc subcommittees and when they'll be presented.
Okay. In the motion, when we get to that point, if someone can include updating that to TBD, that'd be great.
Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Lander, do we have any public comment on this item?
Sure, let me open up public comment for item D1, approve the April 16th, 2025 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. If you have public comment on this item and then you're in the room, you can hand me a card. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button. And if you're calling in, you can press *9 and we'll be able to unmute you. No cards, no hands. We can close public comment or turn the meeting to you, Chair.
Is there any discussion on this item? I presume not.
I move to approve the minutes.
With the change?
Oh, yes. I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Headley and a second by Commissioner Hernandez to approve the April 16th Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes, updating the adaptation subcommittee report out to TBD. Okay. We will do roll call vote since we have 2 absent this evening, and I'm just gonna go in order of the table. So Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Headley, Chair McKenna,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Angel. Great. The motion passes with 5 in favor and 2 absent.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to item D3. We will now select the chair and vice chair. Did I miss one?
D2.
Oh. Okay, I missed that. So sorry. We will now move to item D2. We will welcome our newest commissioner, Nicole Angel. Let's take a moment to welcome our newest commissioner, Nicole, who was appointed by City Council during the April 29th meeting. Commissioner Angel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Just super excited to be here. I've lived in Menlo Park for 13 years now, I think it is, and have worked in sustainability my entire career, and it's something I'm really passionate about and very committed personally as well. I got my start in local government, so it's like a homecoming to kind of be back on this commission working closely with you. And I also worked as a consultant and worked in nonprofit, so I've kind of been all around and seen the different sectors and have a pretty good perspective and a pretty good network here locally as well. So I'm excited to bring my enthusiasm and my knowledge and to work together with all of you. Thank you for welcoming me.
Yes, very welcome, and thank you for being here, and apologies for skipping over that agenda item inadvertently, but we're really excited to have you on the commission. Glad you're here. So, any other comments from commissioners before we take public comment? Welcome. Yeah. Okay, Sandra, do you have any public comment on this item?
Sure. For item D2, welcome new Commissioner Nicole Angel. If you'd like to make public comment and you're in the room, hand me a public comment card. If you're online, you can hit the raise hand button, or if you're calling in, you can press *9 and we can unmute you. I don't have any cards in the room or hands online, so I can close public comment.
Okay, and this is our opportunity to discuss this item. We've done that, but again, anyone want to say anything else? Okay, great. Welcome. All right, now we will move on to item D3, which is to select the chair and vice chair. The EQC traditionally selects a new chair and vice chair each May following April commissioner appointments. The annual selection typically sees the vice chair advancing to the chair position, with commissioners being able to serve consecutive terms in either the chair or vice chair role. Due to Chair Schmidt's early vacancy this year, I was selected during our March 19th meeting as chair to finish out his term to May. And due to Vice Chair Pellegrini Yopart's departure from the commission, the vice chair position is currently vacant. So at this point, we will accept nominations for both chair and vice chair positions. Commissioners may nominate themselves or others, and we will begin with the chair nomination, followed by the vice chair nomination. Are there any clarifying questions before taking public comment? Seeing none, Ms. Lander, do we have any public comment on this item?
Sure. Opening up public comment for items D3, selecting chair and vice chair. If you are in the room and you'd like to make public comment, you can hand a public comment card to me. If you are online, you can hit that raise hand button. And if you're calling in, you can press *9. Don't see any cards in the room or hands raised, so we can close public comment. Sure.
Okay. We will open it up for discussion and feedback and/or motion.
Well, I am curious who is interested in these roles. And I think that they're both great ways to learn about how the commission works, how the interface with the city works. So I think especially the vice chair role is a great place for like a newer person to, kind of understudy and then step into chair next year. I've done both roles, so I'm not as interested as maybe others. So. Is there anybody who's interested?
I mean, I'm interested in the vice chair role.
Mhm.
but you're not the chair role at this moment in time.
Are you interested in the chair role?
I'm happy to continue as chair if the commission would like me to do that.
Okay,
We have a nominate, a motion.
I'm kind of waiting for if no one else is gonna say anything, I will make a motion. I move that, Commissioner McKenna be chair. I guess we do it separate. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Headley, to select Commissioner McKenna as the chair of the Environmental Quality Commission for the 2025 to 2026 term.
We do.
Oh, good one. No, we did.
We
We
did.
did. Oh,
Okay.
we did public comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, no problem. Do you have anyone who wants to second that?
Yeah, so I nominate John McKenna for chair.
So, okay. You two are on a roll tonight. We have a motion by Headley and a second by Hernandez to select Commissioner McKenna as the chair of the Environmental Quality Commission for 2025-2026 term. And we will do our vote in order that you're sitting. Commissioner Hernandez,
I vote for McKenna.
yes, okay. Commissioner Headley?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenna?
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Angel? Aye. Great. Congratulations, Chair McKenna, what's the word? Anyway, unanimous, 2 absent. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor and happy to serve. Okay. So now, do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Nominate.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Angel and a second by Chair McKenna to select Commissioner Meyer as the vice chair of the Environmental Quality Commission for the 2025 to 2026 term. And we'll do our vote. Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Headley. Chair McKenna.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
And Commissioner Angel. Aye. Great, so moved. 5 in favor and 2 absent.
Congratulations. Vice Chair Meyer. So we will now move on to item D4. Discuss the climate action plan progress report for strategies 4, 5, and 6. Staff will be making the presentation and the EPC will be able to provide feedback. Turn it over to staff for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
Can you press the OK button so we can see the full screen?
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you.
That help?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, so at our last meeting, we got to review strategies number 1, 2, and 3. And today we're looking at the second half of the climate action plan's progress from last year and some previews of what's to come this fiscal year. So I'll start with some background, a refresher on our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and then we'll look at each of our strategies 4, 5, and 6, and we'll define those too as we get there. Okay. So climate action has been a top city council priority since 2020. In July of 2020, the city adopted the 2030 climate action plan, which we also refer to as the CAP, with a goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. So reducing our emissions by as much as possible and then sequestering or offsetting any remaining emissions. Annually, our sustainability staff provides city council progress report on CAP implementation. Our sustainability staff, myself, Ori, and Liz, we are the stewards of the climate action plan. And we work across departments and in the community to implement the various strategies across the plan. And so some of them we are the leads on, and some of them we just help facilitate and track and report out on. And tonight you'll hear quite a few that we help facilitate and track and report out on with our partners in public works and community development and other departments. The last progress report was presented to City Council August 13th of 2024, and we're planning to bring this year's to City Council on August 27th. I'm sorry, that's an error on the last bullet. There will not be any updated implementation scope of work going to city council. It'll just be an informational item. And we looked at this timeline last meeting, but just as a refresher, the Environmental Quality Commission undertook an effort to update the climate action plan scope of work. So identifying tangible activities that would have meaningful greenhouse gas emission reductions over a year-long period. And so it's a really unique climate action plan that we have here in Menlo Park that's formed by the community through the Environmental Quality Commission, rather than having a ton of consultant support or kind of outsiders from the community. And so the EQC provided the recommendation for the scope of work, looking at each strategy over the course of several meetings and wrapping up in May 2024. And the scope of work was adopted by the City Council August 27th, 2024. And we are in kind of the implementation phase. So looking at the short-term strategies and working and making progress on those, and then planning for our longer-term strategy. And we looked at this last time as well, but just for some context setting, 2005 is the baseline year for our greenhouse gas emission inventory. That was the first year that the city captured emissions coming from a variety of different fossil fuel sources, from our building energy use to our transportation, our solid waste, and emissions related to the transportation and treatment of wastewater and water. You can see on this table to the right, this is our most recent inventory from 2023. We now collect our inventories every 2 years with help from the County of San Mateo through their regionally integrated climate action planning suite. Our largest sources of emissions are from burning natural gas or methane gas in our built environment. So this includes, not only our homes and our businesses and offices, but city facilities as well. And then our transportation is really actually the largest chunk here. And so that's why we are focused on reducing those transportation emissions. And CAP strategy number 4, reduce vehicle miles traveled by 25%, or an amount recommended by the Complete Streets Commission, is really key to achieving our carbon neutrality goal. However, I'll note that these programs and activities and actions really live within kind of the realm of the Complete Streets Commission. And so tonight we'll be kind of reviewing them, but I think if we want to delve more into detail with them, attending the Complete Streets Commission would be a great venue for kind of getting more in the weeds on where staff are at with these various initiatives. And I won't read through all of these actions, since the slides are provided in the packet, and I think that can take quite a bit of time. But these were the actions that were included in the scope of work update. So these were developed by the EQC and staff as a way to work towards reducing vehicle miles traveled by 25% across Menlo Park. Some additional activities. There's a lot around engagement and education, as well as operating programs such as our shuttle program, and working with regional partners such as the City County Association of Governments to remove cross-jurisdictional barriers to regional active transportation planning and infrastructure projects. And so in 2024, our Public Works Department was hard at work through the Capital Improvement Program and the Transportation Divisions, working towards a variety of projects that are captured within the CAP scope of work. They completed the 2024 street maintenance project, which included traffic calming enhancements, and they restriped enhanced bike lanes on Willow Road and Valparaiso Avenue. They completed the pilot of the Middle Avenue bike lanes, and construction for the permanent installation was awarded and is planned for June through August. Through 2025-2026, Public Works has quite a few priority projects. They were a very lean team last year and have been going through some transitions. And so I think they're close to fully staffed. and are excited to be working on the Middle Avenue complete streets, pavement resurfacing, implementation of traffic calming elements, bike lanes, and more coming this summer. They're also working with our team on the electric vehicle chargers at City Hall and the Corporation Yard, which are in design. As far as bicycle lanes, the Coleman Ringwood project will be built this summer. Our quiet zone is in final design phase. The Middlefield Road resurfacing, bike, pedestrian signal improvements are in the planning phase. And we will begin to work on a grant to look at our Caltrain station to improve multimodal access. And then a closer look at the shuttle program and the Safe Routes program and its progress over 2024. So the city operates a variety of shuttles. Listed here, we have the 4 Crosstown, Marsh, Willow, and the Shopper shuttle. And you can see how many runs or trips they had connecting folks across the city. And in 2024, the Safe Routes program had a number of outreach activities, working with 12 public schools, 12 private schools, and 4 school districts. They held 2 bike repair and educational events, held 1 helmet giveaway, and held 4 task force meetings. They also helped promote and support schools for International Walk to School Day, Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, and Crossing Guard Appreciation Week. So all positive ways to help kids get to school without being in a vehicle. Then looking at our CAP strategy number 5. This one we also work in great partnership with Public Works and other city departments to eliminate fossil fuel use from our municipal or city operations by 2030. And our implementation scope of work just focused on the short term and ongoing. And I won't read all of these, but looking at different financing options beyond our capital improvement program. And we do that through monitoring grants and working with Peninsula Clean Energy, our community choice aggregator. We're also looking at our fleet and how we can right size it and identify zero emission vehicles, and have some efforts on the back end to improve our energy management across our facilities. Here's some more. Again, looking at, updating our municipal greenhouse gas emission inventory, and capturing emissions from our Bedwell Bayfront landfill flare. And something we're really excited about is finding ways to make this data more accessible on our website and even at our facilities, so folks can understand how the city is leading with our own. Oh, and I should pass it off too soon. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Ori.
You're doing great.
Great. These are supposed to be Ori slides. Ori could speak this way better than I could, but clearly we all work together here. So the next slide here on kind of what's in our scope of work, exploring and installing equipment for vehicle to building bidirectional fleet charging. So some really cutting edge things where we can look at resiliency, our vehicle fleet and our buildings, and finding ways that we can be in compliance with other California state laws, such as Senate Bill 1383 to increase organic collection and reduce our emissions from waste. And then lastly, here we have deploying our zero emission landscaping equipment, which our Public Works has done a tremendous job of, which Ori will be able to speak to here soon. I'll pass it off to you now. This is a good natural point.
Yeah, this is great because then we can celebrate that we did one of the things that we were going to do in the short term, which was complete our municipal greenhouse gas inventory. And so on the left, that donut is our 2019 emissions. It's broken out by different emissions categories. So you'll see in orange is the space and water heating. So that's natural gas use in buildings. Gray is from our fleet emissions. So all of the vehicles and that the different city teams are using to do the work that we do. We have employee commute that we're tracking, as well as equipment, and then the landfill that Rachel mentioned, as well as waste generation. And so when we look at 2024, we did see reductions in the overall emissions of around 30%. And a big piece of that came from substantial reductions from space and water heating. And a big piece of that was because the Bellhaven pool heating was electrified with the creation of the new Bellhaven Community Campus. Next slide, please. And we're hard at work at replacing other equipment that's using natural gas. So that's our facility supervisor, Julio Martel, and myself, very happy about the heat pump water heaters that were installed in City Hall. So those beautiful heat pumps are downstairs, and so now all of the domestic water heating for this facility and the Burgess Pool showers and the library, Menlo Park Library, Menlo Children's Center, Bellhaven Child Development Center, the Rosner House, the Little House. Those are all now using heat pumps for domestic water. We're down to only one city-owned and operated, I guess, two city-owned and operated, two city-owned facilities with gas water heaters. So that's the distinction there. And we're constantly trying to work on enrolling those in programs. And that was an exciting program that we were able to take advantage of. Funded by PG&E, and it was the GK12, so Government and K-12 Energy Efficiency Program. And so all of the water heater replacements cost the city nothing, and then they also manage all of the project management, which is huge. So we're grateful for that. We've also been working on a little bit more outreach, and so there's some exciting things to celebrate related to the Bellhaven Community Campus. So the city did receive LEED Platinum certification for that building earlier this year. We were also awarded the Sustainable San Mateo County Green Building Honorable Mention Award, and you can see a photo of us accepting that award. And that was really the result of a lot of teamwork from across the city, with a number of staff who are still with us, and some who have moved on to other places, and then as well as our partnership with Meta and then Engie for the microgrid. So a lot of teamwork was into these, and we have the fun opportunity to apply for awards and help to get our name out there and celebrate all the hard work at the end of it. Next slide, please. And we're taking advantage of other programs, and so part of that is making sure that we put ourselves in a good position to take advantage of these programs. And so one of them is Peninsula Clean Energy's GovPV, or solar and storage for public buildings. And so our CIP team, in close coordination with the maintenance team and all of the other folks in the facilities, worked to accelerate roof replacements at the Bellhaven Child Development Center, City Hall, and the Menlo Park Library, so that we could enroll these into that GovPV program to get solar at no upfront cost to the city. And we're hard at work on EV charging, because that's going to be the key to eliminating the gray emissions from fleet that we showed you in the donuts earlier. Part of that is making sure that we have funds to do that work. It is expensive to electrify, and so we spend a good amount of time seeking out grants. It's very exciting when we win them. So we were awarded a large grant from MTC, around $2.3 million, to fund the public EV charging at this site, and then 2 of the downtown lots are going to receive fast chargers through that project. We also brought on a contract project manager in CIP, who you can see in the middle of our sidewalk photo there, and have been actively coordinating both with PG&E and then across teams within the city. And really, this is the EV charging project that we've been talking about for quite a while now, but it's very exciting to see it move into these design phases, because with this project, we're going to be setting ourselves up for full fleet electrification and support a lot of community charging as well. So you can see the outlay of the ports that we're going to be installing infrastructure for. So really a huge amount of EV charging is just on the horizon, and we're very excited about that. And then also the fact that the infrastructure is going to enable us to very cost effectively add chargers as we need them into the future. We also partnered with the police department to finish up the EV patrol pilot, and we were invited to share the findings of that. So that ran over a full year in 2023. We reported out on the findings in 2024, and then the chief of police submitted to a number of different police chief conferences, and so we were selected to share. And so I got to go to Irvine, and present at the California Police Chief Association with the Chief of Police, Dave Norris, and then he did a presentation for chiefs in Riverside as well this year. And as we look ahead, really the key focus for us is fleet and facilities. And so we're continuing to look at fleet purchases for the next year. So EVs for most of the duty cycles, and then iterating on the different police department use cases. And so with the Blazer EV, which is we got and are now outfitting, which is very, very exciting. And then Ford F-150 Lightnings and some additional use cases within the police department. We're also working collaboratively with fleet and police teams on a fleet right-sizing study, which will help to both identify our vehicle needs and then identify zero-emission alternatives, replacements, for those vehicles, and then continuing to work on EV charging infrastructure. And on the facility side of things, we're finalizing the solar installations. So we just had a very productive meeting in this room just a few hours ago, walking through all of the logistics with the contractor, and then the different stakeholders at the 4 facilities that are going to be receiving those solar installations later this year. We're also working on Bellhaven Child Development Center electrification project. So it doesn't note it there, but we did win. We were awarded participation in the BayREN Decarbonization Showcase, which is a program that provides technical support to cities who are decarbonizing buildings, and then they're going to produce case studies after, so that we can share the learnings and continue to push forward public sector electrification with the support, because it's very important during project development, and really every step of the way. There's a lot of questions that come up, so having that expertise and assistance is very valuable. And we're continuing to study for just pool electrification, so we can take another giant bite out of our emissions profile with the electrification of the pool heating equipment here at the Burgess Pool, and then the Arriaga Recreation Center electrification, so the commercial kitchen, and then the heating and cooling system at that facility, as well as lighting replacements. There's another state law that's going to make it impossible for us to buy fluorescent lights, and so that helps to give us a push to convert all of our lighting over to LEDs. And there's programs that we can take advantage of to help with the financing of that. And that's it for Camp Plan.
Thank you, Rory. There's no more fun photos. Hope you enjoyed Rory's photos. A good reminder to take those. So CAP strategy number 6 is our last one in the climate action plan to develop. And in the strategy is really to develop a climate adaptation plan to protect the community from sea level rise and flooding. And within that, the scope of work was expanded to look, at this California state framework, and also to, include impacts beyond, sea level rise and flooding, and look at high heat and other risks. And so you can see that in the first one, kind of all the details from the state framework. And then the second component of this is to develop an urban forest management plan and lead an early action tree planting effort. And so our progress, and kind of where we're at with CAP strategy number 6, we've formalized a partnership with One Shoreline and a couple other cities to apply for grant funding through Caltrans to complete a regional shoreline adaptation plan, which will be in compliance with the Bay Conservation and Development Commission's new guidelines that all cities and jurisdictions across the Bay Area are to develop a regional shoreline adaptation plan, and they have a very comprehensive checklist online. If anyone's curious to understand, what that looks like and what that means for the Bay Area. So we will be working with One Shoreline to develop our plan with our neighbors, since we know sea level rise doesn't just stop at our bayfront. And we're excited to have East Palo Alto and Redwood City as partners there. We are also and that grant is due July 1. So we're in kind of the midst of that process right now. And then from that will come the public engagement and outreach and the technical studying and the actual reporting pieces, which will come back to the EQC. And then we have our procurement process underway on the tree side of things. We're looking for a technical consultant to develop an urban forest management plan. And we are also looking for a community-based organization or community-based organizations to plant 70 or so trees in Bellhaven in alignment with the environmental justice element, which was adopted in August of last year. And so the RFP for the community-based organizations closed today, and we're excited with responses. And hopefully we'll be able to get started this upcoming planting season, offering residents and businesses in Bellhaven with the opportunity to select and plant and maintain trees. And so I'll leave our overview of 4, 5, and 6 there, and we can move into kind of the clarifying questions and public comment piece and then discussion. Sounds good.
That's great. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Do you have any clarifying questions from the EQC before we take public comment?
A quick one. It's a right sizing study. Oh, I can.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So when we look at the overall fleet, the number of vehicles that we have are related to the duty cycle needs of the different teams that they serve. And so part of what the right sizing study will do is evaluate our current operations and then make recommendations based on that on whether there's additional vehicle needs or if there's opportunities to eliminate or change the vehicles that we're using. Thank you.
Any question?
Commissioner Hadley?
Related to CAP 4, there was a reference to quiet zones. And I'm wondering, is that related to Caltrain or something else?
Caltrain.
Okay, so that's underway.
Yes.
Great.
Questions. There was mention about a grant for looking at Caltrain access for additional use of Caltrain and accessibility. Is that a grant that you're looking to apply for or has already been received?
I'll have to bring that question back to Katrine, our senior transportation planner. That update came from her. I'm not quite sure. We have received grant funding from MTC as kind of their climate programs. So they had a variety of pathways. So that's where we got the EV funding. We also got funding for transportation related development. And so I think it was more around helping us get our standards up to par, but I don't think that's what she was referring to. I think she was referring to another grant. So I'll get back to you on that one. Yeah.
And also similar, it would be the same person you want to check with, but I was curious about the ridership of the shuttle program. So just that was great to see the numbers on how many shuttles were running, but I was curious how much they're being utilized, if there's any data on that.
Yeah, they are working on doing a shuttle study because I do think broadly they could be better utilized. And so the study helps understand if we need to change like schedules or routes or what adjustments we can make to help folks get on them more. But that's something I can also ask about the shuttle utilization.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Then I thought about the shoppers program. So how does that program work and how many people are using it?
Yeah, so that's part of the shuttle utilization. I'll have to get back to about, but I know that's of interest for us to figure out a way to maybe it's either amending the shuttle route or maybe it's doing increased marketing and outreach to help folks primarily get to areas where they can access a grocery store or other sorts of stores. But that's of interest. You'd like to
Yeah.
learn more about.
Yeah, because I work with a lot of seniors in that area and I can tell them this is how you can get to this place. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's information I'll have to come back to.
Commissioner Henley?
I have 3 other questions that might border into the discussion, so let me know. The first one was looking for an update on the Middle Avenue El Camino train crossing. Second, I think there's an initiative called something around Calm Streets. I think maybe that came up at City Council recently.
Yes.
So I was curious how that connected in. And then the third question was around the study for the Burgess Pool water heating electrification. I'm curious what the study involves and
Okay. Yeah. Let me start on the train crossing middle. I believe that's a project that the Complete Streets Commission advises on or makes recommendations on. So that might be a good one to bring to their commission as public comment. But I can check the project website too to see if there's a better contact or avenue to get an update there. Calm Streets, as I've talked to our public works director, are less about kind of reducing vehicle miles traveled and more about quality of life and other things. And so the Calm Streets piece that I think you're referring to is like, you know, like the speed humps or the signage. And so that's not really a part of the CAP4. It's part of other plans within Public Works and part of other pieces of the Complete Streets work plan. And so that, again, might be a good place to land that question or for curiosity or interest. And then the last question around the study for the pool. You want to answer that one?
Sure. So it's essentially all of the pre-project development work that we need to do to kind of refresh our cost estimates and then sizing for equipment, investigating the different options for electrifying that equipment, and then getting a clearer picture of the remaining useful life of the gas equipment. Yeah.
thank you for being on that one. You know, that's a big source of greenhouse gas emissions. That'll be a big deal. Transition. And thank you for the other.
I have a couple questions. Any other questions from the commissioners? The shuttle bus system, the buses are owned by the city?
They are not.
They're not.
Yeah, they are. Well, yeah,
That's the scene. Sure.
yeah, it's not the shuttles that were on this slide. Those are in partnership with regional agencies, and they are not electric.
Yeah, so that was my question. Is there any path to converting them to electric? And I guess in particular, or specifically for the city, the senior shuttles, since that's one that's part of the fleet.
Yes, that one is electric. The
Yeah,
one
that
from
one
the
is
That one
PS.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. It's just a question on the Cat 5. Is the city on target to meet the goal of being net zero by 2030 in that category?
There's still decisions that we need to make about early retirement of some gas equipment, and so part of the facility electrification prioritization work that we're doing is packaging that up so then we can present options for that. And then within the fleet, there's a couple of vehicle segments that we still don't have a clear electric vehicle to replace. And it's in part the patrol vehicles, in part it's the larger trucks, and then there's kind of like a missing middle in mid-sized trucks. Okay, great.
Question on the charging infrastructure that's going into the downtown parking lots. I assume you're putting those on the lots that aren't gonna be redeveloped?
This is true.
Okay.
7 and 8.
And what is the, maybe I missed it, what is the timeline for the installation of those?
So I would need to check back with our CIP team on that. It's being coordinated with resurfacing, which is wonderful, so that we don't have to replace the asphalt twice. But we have grant timing obligations, so it needs to be finished by 2027. So
Okay, I have a comment on the paving, but I'll save it for discussion. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
For the solar installation at those 3 sites that's coming, are those sites all fully electrified? And is it gonna fully cover their needs?
So there's size for 80% of the existing load. We have 4 included in the program right now. The Bellhaven Child Development Center will be fully electrified through the other program. The library, we have a boiler, that's the last piece that's not electric, and the same is true for City Hall. And then the Burgess Pool, the shower water heating is now electric, but the only remaining piece of equipment is the pool heater. And so there are some restrictions based on some of the tax credits that the solar installation will get, limit using solar for pool heating for some reason. So that system will just be for the shower load and levels and things like that.
I had a follow-up. When you say City Hall, does that include council chambers or is that a separate building sort of designation?
The systems are linked, so the electrical systems and the HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems are linked for both of those buildings.
So the boiler serves city,
Correct.
the council chambers
Yeah.
too. Okay, I think we can go to public comment then.
Awesome. Okay, we can go to public comment on item D4, discuss climate action plan progress report for strategies 4, 5, and 6. If you are in the room, you can return your public comment card to me. And if you are calling in, you can press *9. If you're on Zoom, you can hit the raise hand button and we can unmute you. And I have 2 cards in the room, so we can start there. And I forgot to mention earlier that our public comment time is 3 minutes this evening. So I'll just run a little timer and we'll start with Chris Holland when you're ready.
Hi, yeah, this is really more a question than a comment. So CAP strategy number 6, develop a climate adaptation plan to protect the community from sea level rise and flooding. I'm sort of wondering like where we are in that and how can I get involved in that one? So I don't know if you can find that or not. That's my comment.
Thank you for your comment. We can reply potentially after public comment. And then our second public comment, Brian Schmidt.
Thank you, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Park, and this looks great. So I had some relatively picky, specific comments. So on CAP 5, there are 2 mentions of exploring either microgrids or vehicle building projects. It's great that they're exploring those potentials. It's still a little unclear what that might be. So I'd encourage the commission if they want to ask what those potentials are. I think Menlo Park might be interested in trying to help out on both of those subjects. And then on CAP 6, there's a regarding the One Shoreline project. I haven't been tracking as close as I might, but I wanted to ask you consideration of horizontal levees as part of that. project, which is something that's an integral part of the South Bay shoreline protection. And has a lot of environmental benefits too. And then regarding the Burgess Pool study, I was interested in whether there's a possibility of in retirement of the gas equipment that would be sold. That could affect the cost benefit analysis rather than scrapping the gas equipment. So, thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I don't have any other cards in the room. I'm just doing one last check online. If you want to raise your hand for public comment on item D4. No hands raised, so we can close public comment. Return the meeting to you, Chair.
Great. Would staff like to respond to either of the public comments at this point?
Sure. Thank you for the chance to. So for CAP 6, and kind of an update there. So the grant that we are applying for is due July 1, so we're still pretty early in understanding what the climate adaptation plan will look like, and we're not really even quite yet at the scoping of all the data points and outreach that we need to do for that plan. But if you're interested, I can get your email, and as you know, we find out more probably in the fall. I can circle back with you and we can see how it makes sense if you want to be a part of maybe a steering committee or help us with outreach or just kind of have time where we can listen to your concerns or interests. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here.
I could add that our subcommittee will be working on suggestions for that plan as well, and we're happy to reach out to the community for input.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to put
Yeah, actually, I want to take my notes on that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great, we can follow up after too. And then, again, it's still a little early as far as like the strategies around what recommendations will come out of the regional shoreline adaptation plan. I'm sure horizontal levees will be something that's included there. I think they were included as part of the Safer Bay project, which is, you know, in kind of design phase right now. And then the other piece, I think both other pieces were relative to CAP 5, so I don't know anything you want to respond to those.
Sure. So certainly interested in recommendations related to the explorations of microgrids and vehicle building, and any support is always welcome. And then as it relates to the sale of the equipment, the gas pool heating equipment, we're not quite there yet, but that's certainly something that I can bring into those conversations, and we can try to add into the financial analysis. But if you've seen examples of others doing that, we'd welcome resources or references.
Okay, so we can open it up for EQC discussion and feedback. Commissioner Heather.
Well, I think it's particularly exciting, all of the work that's been done on CAP 5, and I think you all deserve a huge round of applause. So thank you. It feels like the other ones are more like in flight, but CAP 5 feels like it's got a lot of traction. So it's nice to see how quickly the city can move when you have, you know, the capacity to control and make something happen. These other ones are more complex. Yeah. That's my main thing. Initially.
Well, so the tree planting in the Bellhaven area, so I'm from Bellhaven, so I can coordinate with city staff to help engage the community, since I know a lot of them, and we can work together.
Awesome. And next month will be our arborist report. And hopefully at that point we'll have awarded the CBO and have more of a plan. So maybe we could discuss that then and discuss participation. Yeah, then.
It's so
Thank you.
exciting that the whole urban forest management plan is happening. And I like that it's, because I think before it wasn't really connected with the climate action plan, but I feel a little bit better that it's connected to CAP 6. because that's, a big emphasis for us, and to know that the trees will be an important part of that mitigation strategy feels really solid to me. So I'm looking forward to more. I think the main concern I have is around Cap 4. It feels like that one feels a little less in our control. And I know our transportation subcommittee, we're going to come back and make some recommendations in a couple of months. But there's so many other parts of the city, as well as other agencies that we need to coordinate with. And I just wonder, like, if anybody has ideas, especially from both staff and the commission, as the three of us are on the transportation subcommittee, we would love your ideas so that we can go away the next couple of months, incorporate them and the public as well, and come back with some really solid recommendations to just move things faster. It feels awfully slower than I would.
Can I ask, being new, I mean, does this subcommittee interact with Complete Streets on a regular basis to kind of give them some feedback and interaction, or just, I'm curious how
Yes.
that works?
Yeah, we have. In the past year, we've had at least one meeting with all of us. And I've met a couple of other times with the chair of the Complete Streets Commission. The challenge I think that they've been experiencing is that, as Rachel mentioned before, city staff it's not been fully staffed over on the public works side. So they've been very judicious about how staff time is allocated, and they have a very clear list of what they're working on, and they don't really want staff to deviate from that list because they've figured out the priorities and they want to go through it. So that makes sense to me, and I just wonder, how can we make it go faster? And so I don't know if there's, in addition to having a full staff, that will certainly make a difference, but maybe there's other ideas everybody has. But we haven't been regularly, I think, going to the Complete Streets Commission meetings, nor have they come here. We've had some discussion about whether or not we should do some joint meetings, but that just gets really complicated. So I think they really want to take the responsibility for the prioritization, especially around Vision Zero, which is zero, deaths and serious accidents on the streets, and identifying based on that criteria, which are the intersections and the parts of the city that are most dangerous, and then working through that list. So that's the main thing they want to focus on. And they're like, if you all can think about, EV charging and some other ways to get gas vehicles off the street, they would like our support on that. I would like things on their side to go faster. Would you all add anything else to that?
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. They seem to want to be focused on their particular order of things. And I think it seems like they want people to stay in their lanes a little bit. Whereas I think us just focusing on EV charging and electric car infrastructure is not the way to reduce VMT. So yeah, I'm open to hearing more suggestions about how to inform our subcommittee work.
Yeah, maybe more of a focus on these connections of using transit and getting just people out of those cars, right? Because I'm thinking that all the traffic calming is going to be good in the ways of absolutely reducing people wanting to be in their car, right? They're going to be frustrated. Oh, this is so slow now, I'm going over these speed bumps, and that's going to make them think, is there another way? What if I tried the train? What if I tried something else? And maybe, figuring out ways to get the word out to enhance that utilizability. I don't know if that's a word, but
Just jumping off of that, what are some of the visions for the multimodal access for the Caltrain station? Like, think about connecting regional transit with micromobility. Are there any ideas? Any maybe new ideas that we can add in this space?
If you have ideas, that would be interesting. I think, at least from the visibility that I've had into it, part of it's looking at kind of the development standards and making a good transportation zone. And we've reviewed some of those requirements. I'm not sure where those are at this point. I think when you're saying, did you say micro mobility? I
Yeah,
don't think that piece is on the table as far as like bike share, scooters. But looking at, better connections with the shuttle, with Samtrans, and with Caltrain, and then looking at how we can have transit-oriented development and how we can facilitate that through our policies and plans.
Yeah, so much of vehicle miles traveled is driven by how a city's designed and how easy is it to get to the things you need to without a car. And so some of those can take a while to change. And maybe there's some things that can be done more quickly that we could, like more low-hanging fruit to put a grocery store in the right place or whatever it might be to allow people to not have to get in their car to get to the things they need. And traffic calming is super important. People feel safer on their bikes and they're more likely to ride their bikes and walk. Yeah, and then just the public transportation, so much of that is beyond our city, and being able to get to where you want to go outside of our city and public transit is possible, but not always easy. And so I'd be curious, like, there's this line in here about working with CCAG to remove cross-jurisdictional barriers to regional transportation. I'd be interested in learning more about that. And is there someone that our subcommittee should talk to in the transportation department to sort of bounce ideas off and brainstorm with?
I think it would make the most sense to kind of coordinate at a peer level with the Complete Streets Commission, and brainstorm there. If that's kind of an avenue that you feel comfortable going down, or if there's some way I can support you in that connection. Okay.
Yeah, thoughts on that? Okay. I was just going to bring up one point on, there was several times where repaving was mentioned here, and sort of coincidentally, I was in a meeting today, and there was a group that does sort of a different type of surface for streets and parking lots, I imagine, that's proposed to be a way to reduce urban heat. And so I'm wondering if the city is aware of that technology or interested in exploring it before embarking on some of these repaving and resurfacing projects.
Yeah, I'd be interested in learning about what it is. I know our team right now is exploring ways to, I think I might have shared this in a past meeting, crunch up the existing gravel and then use that for the new paving. So they're not having to truck in new materials or haul out old gravel. So I don't know if that's the same technology or not, but I'd be curious to hear what solution you heard about.
Yeah, this one company's called Cool Seal. And so I think, I don't know, I haven't fully looked into their product or technology, but the idea is to just reduce urban heat by using a different type of surface. So, yeah, there was even another person that talked about in Berkeley how they have a company in Berkeley that does that very thing that you talked about, is just reusing the surface and not trucking it 50 miles in and out. They're in the city right now. Obviously, Berkeley's a much larger city, but maybe there's opportunities there for Menlo Park.
Yeah, and I understand that technology would be like cheaper and faster too. So a lot of benefits. I will pass on the Cool Seal and then see if there's kind of an interest from our team to learn more. Maybe we can connect there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the Cool Seal and Julia's presentation. Thank you, by the way. Of maybe if we can't use it everywhere, to use it in the places where it's hottest in Menlo Park would, I imagine, have some really significant benefits. And as it related to your presentation, I was wanting to see like where in Menlo Park was it the hottest, so that can inform the tree planting, because it sounds like there's tree planting that you're doing, tree planting that we're doing. Wanting to make sure that all gets coordinated so that we have the greatest impact.
For public comment, I had an error last meeting. If we want to reopen public comment, we can, but only people who have not commented on this item. So Julia could make a public comment if we want to reopen public. Just once.
Would you like to make a comment?
That's.
Yeah, let me just open it real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, we're opening up public comment on item D4 on the climate action plan. We have one public comment in the room, and if you're online, you can raise your hand and I'll be able to unmute you. We'll start with Julia in the room for 3 minutes.
Well, I would be happy to get back to you all a list of some of the hotspots of where we identified in Menlo Park. There were a few areas in the Valley of the neighborhood specifically. One area along Willow Road, which I believe we're considering for the location of our tree planting. Thank you. And I would also just add, based on what I'm remembering from the finalized list, I think it would be a great application for parking lots specifically. In the school. But I can get back. Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your public comment. And I don't see any other cards in the room or hands online, so you can close public.
Great. Do we have any further discussion on this item from commissioners?
Well, as far as next steps, it sounds like we have our transportation subcommittee and we'll be coming back in July. And then CAP 6 subcommittee is the two of you?
Sure.
And when is that presentation?
TBD.
Okay, right, that's what we talked about. Okay, so it sounds like there's nothing, like we need to go away and think and then come back, so we don't need to have a robust discussion beyond what we've
Yeah.
already talked about.
There was no action for this one.
Okay. Okay. No
I
problem.
just had one last question. Did you have something?
Thanks for
Commissioner? Just curiosity, solid waste has been reduced tremendously. Did we talk about that last meeting and not, how did we do that? Just in our citywide emissions, from 54,000 in 2005 to 7,000 in 2023.
Thanks for coming.
And find the slide, so.
Thanks.
We can move on. I didn't have a discussion item. I was just curious.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that
Yeah.
one. I think there's a variety of factors. I think a lot of the state legislation has had a big part in reducing our waste, but I also do think there potentially could have been changes to the methodology for how that was calculated.
I think I do recall that from that meeting. Okay, and I think that closes out that item. So we will now move on to item D5, provide recommendation on potential options for local building code amendments. For this item, Lori Paz will be making the presentation and the EQC can then take an action. And over to you.
You, Chair McKenna. You Rachel for running the slides. So yes, we'll be discussing the options for local building code amendments. We'll provide a little bit of the background of this process, where we've been, where we're headed. We'll talk a little bit about the public workshops that we held to solicit feedback from the community, and then we'll have ample time for discussion and EQC recommendation to close this up. So I think within this commission, we're fairly familiar with some of the benefits and motivations for electrification, so I won't spend too much time on this, but we can certainly dive into it more. And then we did post the recordings of the workshops, which spent a little bit more time clarifying and setting that context. But essentially what we're trying to do is reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve air quality, both indoor and in the community, and then support energy affordability, some resilience against price volatility, as well as power outages, safety, and then do it in an equitable way. Because this is an opportunity to make a change and make sure that that all residents are able to access the benefits that come from electrification. And so the other piece of this is the cost of doing nothing. And so a big focus is understanding that while there are costs and costs, when we compare those to the economic impact of rebuilding after climate disasters, we see that the costs of inaction are staggeringly higher than these mitigations that we're proposing. It's okay. Gives me time to catch my breath. Remember to speak slow. So revisiting our greenhouse gas inventory, we highlighted this earlier in one of the earlier items, but building energy is the second largest portion of our community-wide emissions. And when we're talking about buildings within that sector, the vast majority of those emissions from buildings are coming from existing buildings. And so a big focus of what we're looking at for this next, the 2025 code cycle local amendments is really a focus on existing buildings because we have 95% plus of the buildings within the city are existing buildings. And so that's the greatest opportunity. Next slide, please. And as we consider how we can build a cleaner tomorrow, we continue to emphasize the promotion of voluntary action through education, outreach, and then city programs. So do want to highlight especially the home upgrade program, which is utilizing a CEC grant to fund the no-cost electrification of homes within the Bellhaven neighborhood for income qualified residents, and a number of other programs related to that. And then the city also is running a permit fee waiver right now for building permits for electrification measures. And so we're continuing to move full speed ahead on programs that promote voluntary action, as well as advertising incentives through regional partners. So there's a number of programs through Peninsula Clean Energy, as well as financial incentives to help bring the cost of the equipment down and connect folks to contractors and support people to walk them through the process. There's also the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, Tech Clean California, and then there are still some federal incentives through the Inflation Reduction Act. And the other side of it is we're exploring rules to adopt as a way to require action. And those are in the form of the building code amendments. And so just a quick overview of building codes. Generally, building codes set the minimum standard for the buildings that are allowed to be built within the city. And so really when we look at the award-winning buildings, right, with savvy architecture teams and owners that are motivated to do these things, we see that the building sciences continue to evolve, and there's this new technology and people are learning things all the time. And so by modifying the code, we can get closer to those best practices and make sure that everybody has access to that high quality building and those technological advances, and not just the folks who have a savvy architect or time to research the equipment and opportunities. And the state of California does update the building codes on a triennial basis. So every 3 years, there's a new code, and it's all part of the state plans related to the state climate goals. And the Energy Commission has a pipeline and a roadmap. And so even now, when they've finalized most of the energy code for 2025, they're working on the 2028 code cycle. And so each of these is a stepping stone toward where the state wants to go, which is clean, emission-free buildings that run economically, so they can save folks money. And the state does allow cities to adopt local amendments to the building code, and those are specific changes that can go beyond state requirements for now. And so as we look at the different municipal code amendments, the building code is just one of the titles within the municipal code. And so the local amendment process is something that would be tied to the building code. There are also different ordinances that could be explored to address our goals for existing building electrification, they live outside of the building code. And really the difference there is that the building code requirements, those affect project teams that are developing projects. So something that you would come into the city for a building permit for. And so at the time of construction, you would incorporate different design measures into your project to comply with the requirements to get your building permit. And that could be for the residential sector or for the non-residential, and there's different options for each. And then another set of options is outside of kind of the time of construction building code requirements. And those could be something like a time of sale requirement, similar to what the city of Berkeley has, adopted with their building energy savings ordinance. And I do want to revisit the point that the state is progressing toward electrification. And so with the 2025 building code that's slated to take effect January 1st of 2026, regardless of anything that the city does, we are seeing that there's a number of different measures that have been included in that code. You don't have to go into all of them in detail. There's really great resources available with fact sheets about the different building segments. But essentially, there's a huge emphasis on heat pump adoption, which is a change from previously. There's electric emphasis readiness or pre-wiring requirements that are included throughout the base code, and then a change to the cost effectiveness calculation. So that's very wonky, but it helps to promote electrification by allowing a different calculation on how to determine savings that somebody would see from different interventions that they do through the building. Next slide, please. And so when we look at the range of building code amendment options that we're exploring, we again are breaking them out between new construction and existing buildings, looking at the residential. We have single family residential, multifamily residential, non-residential, which is a very wide category. I'll just do a quick explainer of the legend here, where you see a box with a check in it. Those are items that are already included in the 2025 base code. And so you'll see that there's extensive pre-wiring, AC to heat pump requirements, both for new construction and existing buildings. And so those are areas where we're not proposing to focus. Really the areas that we're interested in exploring further are those boxes that do not have checks in them. And so those are things like non-residential pre-wiring requirements, expanding the pre-wiring requirements for existing buildings, and then expanding the AC to heat pump, and then the development of a flex path, which we'll talk a little bit about. We'll talk in more detail in a few slides. And then on the other options, again, so the first batch were related to those time of construction requirements, but there are a number of different options out there that have different time scales. And so would be ordinances that the city could adopt that would govern development differently. And so those are the building performance standard, green building ordinance, and time of sale. And as you can see, the field is fairly open with respect to options for those. So when we talk about pre-wiring, we do want to note that the City Council did adopt a pre-wiring local amendment in January of this year, and it was understood at that time that we would come back with additional options for building code amendments, and we're back. And so the whole idea behind pre-wiring is that it enables future electrification, primarily in existing buildings, by ensuring that there's the wiring and electrical capacity for key appliances, so that if there is an emergency and you need to swap out a water heater, or it's time and you want to replace your stove or air conditioner, you're able to do that, and it's a less intensive project. the updates that we're talking about could expand our rewiring requirements. So covering whole home electrification, when you're sizing equipment, capturing opportunities for smart panels and load sharing, and then exploring other building types, notably in the non-residential sector. Air conditioner to heat pump. So these are requirements which are considered low-hanging fruit and really great opportunities, because where you install an air conditioner, that piece of equipment really only cools. When you install a heat pump, it moves heat, and so it can very efficiently heat and cool spaces. And so this requirement very simply would just mandate the installation of a heat pump, which has limited additional costs. Sometimes it's more cost effective, and then it also provides the added benefit of heating in addition to the cooling. And so this is, again, required in the base code for new construction and some additions and alterations. And then we would be exploring opportunities to expand that within the city. And FlexPath, I think, is the newest of them. It's short for a flexible compliance pathway. And essentially what it does is it establishes a point threshold that projects must meet. And so for major residential or non-residential additions and alterations, the city could set a affected area or a cost threshold that really establishes which kinds of projects need to comply with these requirements, and then a menu of measures that have a different point basis. And those points are based on the greenhouse gas reductions, the cost effectiveness, other benefits like resilience and things of that nature. And so to comply, a project team could select the compliance measure that works best for their project. And that's the flexible piece of the FlexPath option. And then building performance standard. So this is something that's being advanced at the state level, and we've seen examples of this in other states as well. And essentially, what this ordinance would do is require the disclosure of energy usage, benchmarking, and then for larger buildings, really setting a clear timeline for when they need to make improvements. And so this would allow the building owners to coordinate and plan for some of these more intensive and costly upgrades to their buildings, and really gives them kind of a clear runway and clear expectations. So measure what you're doing, and then reduce your usage based on a percentage that would be determined by the city council. The next is green building ordinances. And so when we talk about these, we're talking about green building certifications. So we mentioned earlier that the Belhaven Community Campus received LEED Platinum certification, LEED, or Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. That's a voluntary green building certification. And there's others. So Passive House is an excellent standard related to energy efficiency. There's the Living Building Challenge, which is probably the gold standard of the three of them. And really, the idea is that buildings at the time of kind of planning their projects could have flexibility and compliance. So they could either pursue certification in one of these green building programs, or they could eliminate emissions. And so allowing some of that flexibility. There's also marketing advantages, and a lot of studies that have shown that buildings that have green building certifications are able to charge higher rents, and people enjoy those buildings much more. I think the flip side of this is, because this is a voluntary certification program, the timing can be a little bit challenging. And we've learned a little bit about that because we do have green building ordinances already. And so within the zoning ordinance, there are requirements for LEED certification for buildings at a certain size in the Bayfront, and then across the new zoning districts that were created as part of the housing element, and then in the downtown area as well. And time of sale, I think, is also a fairly new exploration, but we do have a great example right across the bay with the city of Berkeley's building emission savings ordinance. Essentially, at the time of sale, the buyer and the seller both will put a bit of money into an account, and that money can be used or has to be used for electrification or energy efficiency measures within a 3-year time period. And if that money is not spent, then it would be forfeit and go to other like a low-income electrification or energy efficiency program. And this is one that we're still in kind of early days exploring. And so if directed by council, we would dive into it in more detail and figure out kind of what specifically it would look like for the city of Menlo Park. And I want to kind of take a step back and note that we are not working on this alone, which is great. So we have the support of Minutes of Clean Energy and TRC consultants, and they're working in partnership with our, really in partnership across the state on model code resources, but in particular with our neighbors in the Silicon Valley Clean Energy, covering Santa Clara County. And so they're doing the cost effectiveness studies that are required by the California Energy Commission for any local amendment. So really making sure that we demonstrate that anything that we're proposing is going to be cost effective and not unreasonably add costs to folks returning those energy savings. And they're preparing model codes and materials and will be supporting us through this. So they've been a great help thus far, and then they'll be joining us when we do go to city council to help answer technical questions and support us as we refine our ordinances. And so this is a timeline of the different options. I don't know if we need to go into this in too much detail, but it is available in the slides. I think the key thing to note is that there are model codes for different segments within what PC and TRC are putting together that have timelines that will not align with the January 1st effective date of the 2025 code. And so that's a big consideration for us because it's a big undertaking to move these codes forward. And then there's a lot of training that needs to happen both in the building community and on the staff side. So where possible, we're trying to align that. And then the other piece to note here is that the way that they're putting these together, the idea is that there will be a model code that includes all of these because they'll have different triggers or times when different projects would need to comply with each of them. And so the idea is that local jurisdiction could select all of them or the ones that work best for their community. And as far as the timeline, we did have 2 public engagement workshops earlier this month. We'll talk a little bit about the feedback that we got there. Tonight, we're here speaking with you all at the Environmental Quality Commission. We have a tentative city council study session in July, so July 8th, where we'll be relaying the feedback that we received from you all this evening and the public engagement workshops, and then hoping to get clear direction so that we can begin building code development in the early summer, and then come back in September to the EQC with the work that we've done, and then go to city council for 2 meetings in October to be ready for a January 1st, 2026 implementation start to align with that base code. And we are aware that there's state legislation, so Assembly Bill 306, that's making its way through the legislative process now. And as written, it would limit our ability as a local jurisdiction to make local amendments that would affect residential projects. And we continue to monitor that. And we're expecting that there's going to be some modifications, as kind of the spirit seemed to be a focus on enabling new construction of housing, which is a very important topic. But part of the reason why we're setting the tentative date for a city council study session in July 8th is that we believe we should have some more clarity in kind of what the final form of that bill will look like, and so then we can respond with the materials that we bring forward and the code that we develop. Okay, so recapping our public workshop. So thank you. So, some of you attended our in-person Building a Cleaner Tomorrow building code amendment feedback workshop that was held in person at the Belhaven Community Campus. So that was really great to be able to use that space, and so we really appreciated the support of our team members over there helping us get everything set up. And then we held another online session on May 8th, and so we had Spanish interpretation for both events, and then we had the slides translated into Spanish for the May 8th presentation, and then we have recordings in English and Spanish as well to help make sure that we're more accessible to all the Spanish speakers in our community. And we received a lot of really great feedback, and so I think summarizing it here, this is I know it's comprehensive, but these are kind of the key topics that we heard, and really, the idea behind the activity at the in-person event was that we're all in the same boat, and so where we're headed is our goals and priorities. And so we heard from folks that those goals include a healthy planet and community, energy independence, and equity. And so very aligned with the direction that staff is heading. We heard again that cost it is a huge consideration and a major factor. And so the incentives that are available to make the electrification equipment and projects at par or cheaper than replacing gas. That's really what helps to win those contracts for the contractors. And then there's a number of different ways that we can enhance our support at the permit counter. I really like the people-centered focus there. I did want to note that we were able to share that our building counter does meet with folks in person, and so really I think part of it is just making sure that we're elevating the level of service that they're providing and making that available to folks, and then continuing to expand our outreach and education while supporting the existing incentive programs, notably the home upgrade program and others through PCE. And so now we turn to the Environmental Quality Commission and recommended that you help us to establish a priority list and advise the City Council to give us some clear direction so that we can get to work on developing the specific code language and the triggers and exceptions and all of the things that need to happen to turn it into codified language that will help us move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you very much. A lot of really good information there, ideas. Do we have any clarifying questions from EQC before we take public comment?
I have a few. For the building energy emissions, is there data on the split between residential versus commercial? I know for the building portfolio standards, it says above a certain square footage, which I think before we talked about 25,000 square feet is the threshold. Is there then like a split between building commercial buildings of greater and less than that square footage?
So may I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So to the first question, there are some restrictions on data availability for the emissions for this year, but the last year that we were able to look at that split, it was 55% from non-residential, and so we know that the non-residential sector is is a larger opportunity. And then to your other question about the building performance standard, for example, is at the state level, I think it's a 20,000 square feet. We have requirements in the zoning ordinance for the Bayfront, and I think it was carried over into some of the others that at least require reporting 10,000 square feet. And so the threshold that we explore for that, and then the green building ordinance and all of these is definitely something that we would welcome recommendations and then support kind of validating that in research.
Another question is, sounds like in the feedback from the session yesterday, right? So whenever it was, May 8th. Yes. That incentives are very important. How secure are the funding for the incentives that you listed on page 5? So I know for the Tech Clean California, didn't they run out of heat pump water heater?
They did, and then they reopened, and I think they ran out again. And then the federal heat pump incentives they ran out. Really, the ones that I think are going to be the most useful and secure are the ones that are coming from Peninsula Clean Energy, because none of their programs are funded from outside sources, and so that's really where we're focusing on promoting and then trying to drive as many folks to take advantage of those as possible.
Cool. Other clarifying questions? Okay, then we can take some public comment, please.
Awesome. We will open up public comment for item D5, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you. The provide recommendations on potential options for local building code amendments. If you are in the room and you have a comment card, I can grab that from you. Sorry. That's perfect. Thank you. And then if you're online, you can hit the raise hand button. If you're calling in, you can press *9. So we have one comment card and then we have one hand online. So we'll start in the room with Brian when you're ready.
Thank you again, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Spark. And thanks, Lori, for that very comprehensive presentation. I wanted to give 3 reasons that EQC might use for why the city should swing big at this point on building codes. First reason is that we've lost time. It's not our fault. It's the fault of some bad decision-making by 3 appellate court judges, the 9th Circuit, but due to that litigation, that slowed things down from where we were and where we would have been if they weren't holding us back on certain types of reach. So we need to make up for that lost time. The second is something that Lori brought up, that bill AB 306. While it's unclear what it will be in the end, it is possible that it will be flexibility in its current building code, 2025 building code, to take action and then restrict what might happen in the future. So that's another reason to go big. And then the third reason is the climate action plan, just been reviewed. While we've made a lot of progress, natural gas emissions and emissions from stationary sources are still a big issue. And we've made the progress, most of the progress we could in cleaning up electricity. So it's important to go big at this point. So along those lines, I think it's really important to do both AC to heat pump and FlexPad. I'm wondering whether pre-wiring could be rolled into FlexPad. So rather than being viewed as separately, that could be part of that. And then for other options, a building performance standard, it seems like that's administratively complex and some things might be happening at state level, but it might be a recommendation from EQC to council is watch this, look for opportunities for us to do more. Green building standards, I feel like I wish I personally knew more about that. It seems like an opportunity to take action on those things, especially for existing building if we're non-residential. We focus so long on residential. This is a good chance in 2025 for the council to focus on non-residential. And then for time of sale, that Berkeley action is very interesting. That's very new. So maybe the recommendation to council could be have some staff time to watch what's happening. Come back next year with a recommendation on what might be done.
And
Thank you. Thanks again for this great work.
And then we have, comment online, sorry, it's a little slow tonight. Just trying to get the unmute here. So Peter, I'm gonna allow you to unmute. You see the option to unmute now?
All right, I'm unmuted. Oh, can you hear me?
Thank you.
I'm Peter Edmonds, a resident of District 3. And thank you for the comprehensive description and presentation of the plan, which is clearly very comprehensive and has involved a great deal of work. What I notice is a lack of any mention of the precautions that might be taken in the case or anticipating electrical power outage. And I had expected that there would be mention of battery backup, which I did not notice. Also, what precautions might be taken for warning occupants of totally electrified buildings of a potential power outage beyond what is currently available from PG&E. So I'd like to recommend those items for your attention.
Thank you for your comment. And I don't see any other hands raised online or cards in the room, so we can close public comment and return the meeting to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for the public comments. We'll open it up for EQC discussion and feedback. Anyone like to go first? Commissioner Meyer?
I'm interested in learning more about the flex path, like how does that point system work and what is it? Yes.
Want me to take that?
Question to the ether.
I'll let staff address.
Sure.
Yes, so there's a number of tools and I think we can circulate them after. And so you can actually dive into the cost effectiveness calculator that was used as the basis for the flex path. And then you can see it lays everything out very clearly. It's reasonably user friendly. But essentially you can see like the greenhouse gas savings for each measure, the cost effective at like the payback period. And then you can change your ranking. And so it's a really great interactive tool and the list is fairly comprehensive. And so it includes things like additional insulation for floors, walls, roofing, better windows, replacing appliances with electric. And so each of those has its own score. And so the city can then establish, if we have priority measures, then we can weight the number of points that you would get for, let's say, replacing your water heater with a heat pump water heater. We can say like that's a priority measure, and so apply additional points for that. So let's say you're doing a kitchen remodel, you're not going to touch your water heater, but you're over the threshold, and so you need to pick some of these additional measures. And the idea is because you're already going through a substantially disruptive construction project, the additional cost and the additional disruption and to include some of these would be marginal. And then we as the city can decide what the priority is. And then as long as they meet that point threshold, they can pick from the range of options. And yeah, so we'll share the cost effectiveness calculator after this. I'm happy to dive into it in more detail. because it is a really great resource.
And that's where that comment of like looking at battery storage too,
Yes.
resiliency, we could, require a certain size. Battery energy storage system
Or battery readiness, which is included in the base code already. So for some of those things, especially for new construction, that's already required, and then we can explore expanding that as one of the flex path options for existing buildings.
I just had a clarifying question, the green building ordinance, what's the size threshold typically? Does it cover all building types, and is it just new construction or existing buildings that ordinance could apply to?
It can apply to any, you can get a passive house certification on a single family home. You can also get LEED home certification on single family homes. And then it goes all the way up. And so within the LEED ecosystem, there's interior design and construction. There's also existing buildings and maintenance. So there are certification programs that existing buildings can fall into. On the passive house side of things, it's called EnerFit. And so passive house is very rigorous, and some of it requires, appropriate siting and things like that. So you can take advantage and shed solar heat gain. So there are some limitations on whether or not an existing building could meet passive house certification, but the EnerFit program was born out of passive house and is pared down a little bit so that it's feasible for existing buildings.
Are there examples of other jurisdictions that have adopted a green building ordinance?
Yes.
Did you
Yes.
list those already?
Yes, there's some listed.
Santa Monica
Yes, yeah.
for their own buildings.
Yeah, Santa Monica has a living building challenge for
Yeah.
public buildings, which is very robust, very cool. And then at the state level in Massachusetts, passive house is alternative compliance pathway. In Pennsylvania, all public buildings need to meet passive house. And again, when you're in more, we're in a more temperate climate, and so the additional cost of some of the measures is less cost effective than in Pennsylvania, where you have significant insulation can save you a lot of money in the winter. But as I think most of us are aware that are with the addition of more frequent extreme heat events, there's some additional advantages to securing the building envelope and improving insulation beyond just your energy savings.
Yeah. Apologies for the lame question, it was right in front of me. It looks like it's mostly large cities and states that have adopted it.
That's true, but we do have some in certain zoning districts already. Yeah.
Right. More discussion from commissioners?
I mean, I really like the Go Big plan, and I was having that same feeling myself because there's urgency on many levels. And I don't know if we could look again at that chart. It was super helpful to see, because I was thinking, as Ori, you were saying that, it gets complicated for the training of staff to implement. And I mean, if there are ways to just put that check all across the board, to just say, okay, this is the rule for all buildings now. And perhaps that simplifies the training and the, like for AC to heat pump, like it's everybody except single family and duplex. Well, let's check that one off right there. Just to simplify it. And, I don't know why that is omitted, but that seemed to make sense to me, to just sort of simplify and go there. But I really like the idea of the AC to heat pump, first of all. I mean, it just seems obvious. And AC is going to be something that people are going to more and more if they don't already have it. And then it's just like that natural progression. Hey, now you have heat, and guess what? Let's just take your furnace out. So right there, that makes a lot of sense, as well as the pre-wiring too. I mean, so I don't know. Those are just some thoughts to start.
Well, with the pre-wiring, because technology keeps changing and they make it a lot simpler. For example, with the like the dryers, now you can get like a heat pump dryer that you don't need like the 240 plug. You can put it on a regular plug, and it does it like in 90 minutes, and it's wash and dry. And yeah, so then if you force people to have like 240, and then like, oh, I don't need it because a regular yeah.
Speaking of the pre-wiring requirements, I really like the idea of incorporating some of the ideas that came from our technical experts in the community around the smart panels. And all of the different technologies, so, yeah, +1 to what you said. Let's not force people to do more electrical work than is actually needed. I have a question too. I'm also a fan of simplicity and covering as many building types as possible. I like this idea of, you know, checking the box across the board with FlexPath, and I'm curious why it's X'd out for new construction.
So in part, it's because the standards for new construction are already kind of so advanced that
In the 2025 building code?
yeah.
Okay, so it's just not necessary to do anything in addition.
Yes, and it's more for like major additions and alterations. But I guess we could.
It'd be like the, I don't know if you remember from last time we talked about codes, like the EDR, the energy performance. So looking, like there are ways to increase the energy performance, but it's a different kind of point scored. And so the way that PCE modeled it for this past code cycle is the code baseline for 2025. So the code for existing or for new buildings goes as far as you can go without requiring electrification already.
Okay. Hi, good to see you. Okay, I guess, you know, in this go big, swing big. Thank you for that framing. I'm curious how much, like of all of these options, how do you feel like you could, does it make sense to recommend city council to do all of them? Do you have the capacity for it?
And would there be a huge pushback also that
Yeah.
would just tank the whole thing, because we don't want that either.
Right. And I like the building performance standard idea that we already have that happening in certain parts of the city. Seems like it's easier to expand something that's already happening and working. If we had to choose. So I'm curious about how that's actually working in did you say the Bayfront area and some places in downtown?
That's the green building, not the building performance.
Oh, that was the green, okay.
I think it depends who you would ask in the city for what they would recommend. I know our building official is excited about the combination of these three. The pre-wiring, the AC to heat pump, and the FlexPath. They make sense to him. They're easily implementable at the counter. They're cost effective and they're tied to emission reductions, which is our primary goal with these ordinances. And they could be kind of handled within that division. And so I think this package is kind of most interesting, but we do acknowledge that, you know, there are some gaps, and this goes as far, it really encourages electrification, but it doesn't require it, and that's kind of what we've been held to with California Restaurant Association versus Berkeley. When we start looking at the other options, these would probably live outside of our building department. And so we're looking at different triggers, like time of sale or just like an annual reporting requirement. And these would be totally new programs, whereas our friend Jeff would say work streams. And so they would take a lot more time, I think, to get off the ground, and they would probably live in the sustainability team. And so the public comment we heard around, you know, exploring these or starting to get, you know, community engagement going for some of these, like time of sale. We would really want to engage the realtor community, which we haven't yet done. So kind of getting that guidance to do those sorts of activities would be meaningful as we like actually get some of these, you know, easy to implement ordinances on the books.
And with FlexPath,
that only gets triggered, say, for existing single-family buildings upon a major remodel?
Yeah, so we could talk about what those thresholds are for a major remodel.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be something we'd want, I think, to talk about where this slide, timeline slide is. At the September EQC meeting, if city council gives us direction to develop a code around that. We'd want to get into the weeds in September around what those thresholds are. Like if it's based on square footage or cost of the project.
Hmm.
Or what area you're touching.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the work that we would be doing is aligning it with existing kind of bundle triggers. So
Yeah.
things like 500 square foot addition, you know, there's already requirements at that level. And so if there are clear delineations that
Nice.
staff and the building community are already familiar with, those are the opportunities that we're going to be
Yeah.
looking closely into as well.
Okay.
Once we get direction and a little more clarity. And I would say the other thing to note that maybe we didn't include in the slides is that we are continuing to engage with both the neighboring cities through the county's managed regional integrated climate action planning suite. And then we've also kicked off kind of recurring meetings with the city of Palo Alto so that we can kind of coordinate our efforts. Because we're all in a very similar position in the development of these.
Yeah, when we had that presentation by the BPS expert, he really talked about encouraging small cities to engage regionally. So that, link arms.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Was there anything in either the BPS or the green building ordinance or the time of sale that you all were particularly excited about? Like wanting to, let's be the leader in this space and try some new things and feel like you have the capacity for it?
I think that the building performance standard it's a very well, it's a brilliant idea because what you'll hear is that especially within the non-residential existing building sector, it's so varied. And so by requiring the benchmarking, it allows them to get a sense of what they're already doing. And so you'll see them motivated to make these improvements because they can very easily see the cost benefits there. And then the clear runway. The challenge is that it's a very administratively burdensome effort. And so I think like watching to see how it evolves at the state level is a really good thing that we can do. And then we could explore, expanding our benchmarking requirements, because that right now that's the requirement in the Bayfront and some of the other zoning districts is, we don't need to do audits. They're just required to enroll in the Energy Star portfolio manager, whose future is uncertain at this point. But benchmarking, I think is I think it's a very solid approach just to get folks familiar with what they're already doing, and then you can use that to inform decisions in the future.
Nice.
I would say on the green building ordinance, we've had challenges with it because again, with the voluntary, just the voluntary nature of those certifications, it doesn't perfectly line up with the timelines, and especially for new construction projects, but essentially for every construction project, they try to mitigate risk as much as possible in project management, and really the time delays are the killer. And so if you have someone who has done everything to comply with all of the city requirements, and then they're waiting on a third party to do their review, it's outside the city's control, and again, it's a difficult thing to administer, or it's more challenging than something that lives within the building code, like the bundle of options that Rachel showed.
I have one more question about the benchmarking for BPS. It sounds like it is administratively not that bad. like they just enroll in a program that may or may not exist in the future with Energy Star being a little bit on the rocks. But maybe they just like link accounts and then they get a report about how much greenhouse gas emissions they're emitting? Is it like that? Is it a burden for the city or for the building owners?
So as it is right now, it's not that burdensome,
Okay,
because they just need to demonstrate that they have enrolled.
okay,
And so that process is very clear and straightforward. And again, with the future uncertain.
Yeah.
But there will be another platform. There's an effort to try to save the Energy Star program. But because the state is moving forward
Mm.
with building performance standards, there will be another
Yeah.
platform, and that's where it may make sense to wait and see what they land on, so then we can align with the state requirements, so that the building owners are not having to kind of comply with two separate requirements, and we could then adopt or iterate beyond what the state lands on.
cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Quick question on the time of sale requirements. What decides the amount of funds in the escrow account? Like, is it a set monetary like number or a percentage or?
With Berkeley, I believe they just set a flat amount that each party would contribute. It was like 3,000.
That's what I,
2,500 each.
Yeah.
2,500 each.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then they have 3 years, the buyer has 3 years to spend it, and they can, the way Berkeley's configured it, they have to also achieve a certain number of points. But there's kind of more simple ways we could do it. Where like you can only spend up to $1,000 from that pot on your induction stove, so that way you have enough for like the higher energy saving measures.
the other thing I heard about that program that sounds really cool is if you don't use the money, it goes into a fund to support people with less resources to elect.
Sounds like an interesting program.
Yeah.
Just Curious on the public support or something like that.
Yeah, and going back to your question on what's interesting, like I'd be curious to learn if realtors are how they feel about it and how the community feels about it. Anecdotally, I saw from a realtor that there's 300 homes sold a year in Menlo Park, so I think that's more substantial than maybe some of these other thresholds,
Mm-hmm.
like
And it
new
could be-
construction or,
And for a lot of money too.
yes.
Yeah,
So it's a small fraction of what is being paid for those homes.
right.
Yeah,
And it would really move the needle in the existing building stock.
it's my understanding that in Berkeley, the realtors just wanted a couple of concessions on how the joint escrow could be used, but overall they didn't have any issues with the structure as escrows are common. And you all probably know more about that than I do.
I also like that because it seems like it wouldn't be subject to this problem with AB 306. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like having a backup plan.
Yeah, thanks for all these great comments and discussion. You know, personally, I feel a sense of urgency in these things, and I think there's a real opportunity this year for Menlo Park to make some significant progress on building emissions policy and programs. You know, while the state is progressing towards electrification on new construction, there is an opportunity for cities and local jurisdictions to go even further with the energy performance code. Which sort of ties in, I guess, with pre-wiring. I kind of look at the energy performance code as just getting that many more new buildings to be all electric from the start and sort of stop digging ourselves in a deeper hole. And I think there's model code language for that in CalGreen that, I think is relatively easy to adopt. Enforcement, I can't say, but I think, if the city can go as bold as possible on new construction, remodels and existing buildings, that would be my recommendation. So an energy performance code for new construction, which may eliminate pre-wiring, or it could be incorporated as one. Because all of these policies don't require owners to do anything. They always have an alternative pathway. And with Flex Path, you have different ways to get to certain places. So none of these are mandates. They're just ways to really encourage our buildings to go in the right direction. So energy performance code for new buildings, AC to heat pump for existing buildings, I think is really important. And the Flex Path for remodels. The BPS and the Bezo are super important as well. I kind of like, if we're trying to prioritize things, I might suggest that the city sort of take a closer look at BPS and Bezo next year and focus on these building code amendments this year. The BPS, even if it's enacted tomorrow, it's a 20-year program basically, so it doesn't get us where we need to be regardless on our climate action plan goals. It gets us closer, obviously, but we're not going to be net zero by 2030 because we adopted a BPS, but it's super important. Like, we need to develop these programs for these large buildings to be decarbonized. I'll just add that there are other options the city could take. They could adopt an end of flow by a certain date, which sort of puts a line in the sand, and the date, whatever that date is, could be sort of negotiated. But even if there's an end of flow, I think all of these other things are necessary tools to get to that date so that people aren't scrambling at that last hour to comply. There is an opportunity for a city to adopt zero NOx amendment code, which other cities have done without legal threat yet. And Peninsula Clean Energy and Rincon developed a tool and basically for policymakers to look at the impact that these different ordinances will have on emissions. And it was shown that if a city were to adopt a zero NOx ordinance now in advance of the dates required by the air district, that program policy will have the most impact by far of these other ones that we're talking about. So there are other ways that, we can get to these things. But, there are concerns with zero NOx and what that might mean, from a legal point of view, but, it would have the most impact and would really get us closer to reducing the emissions in our buildings. And so all of my comments are sort of like, if AB 306 doesn't pass in its existing form, which is no guarantee, like, this is a bill from the Speaker of the House. It has a lot of political clout, and there's been so far very little willingness to amend the bill. And maybe it does get amended, but whatever recommendation that EQC makes, I would suggest that we also recommend that our city formally oppose the bill, like many cities across the state have done. I think the more pressure that the legislature hears and concerns that the legislature hears from local governments who are gonna have local control taken from them, are gonna have a tool taken out of their toolbox to achieve their climate action plan goals, is super important. So those are my comments. I welcome further discussion. I will say that City of San Mateo is looking at a lot of these similar things as well. And it's sort of like yes and on all of those, like to my point, like we need all of this stuff. And to the point that Ori made earlier, the cost of doing nothing is far greater than getting these things going now. So I feel that it's important that the city, as the public commenter said, go big. But we could maybe stage it a little bit so that the building code stuff we tackle now, the BEZO and the BPS, we sort of building emissions savings ordinance, the Berkeley time of sale ordinance. Could be something we focus on next, after the building codes are adopted. I'll just say one other thing, which I can say in announcements or whatever. There's a meeting on May 29th for city and staff to learn more about these reach code opportunities that's being put on by PCE and SVCE and maybe TRC as well. So I think it's for staff. I know it's for electeds. So I would encourage our elected officials to participate in that learning session. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
maybe
welcome
what
more
I'm hearing,
comment.
but I'm in motion mode.
Mhm.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, I think there seems to be some consensus around for 2025 into 2026, AC to heat pump, flex path, and the pre-wiring, and maybe flex path and pre-wiring are one and the same.
No, energy performance code and
Okay.
pre-wiring. I'm suggesting that the city adopt an energy performance code.
And that was not in this presentation, right?
No.
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, so the state code, as already mentioned, is much stronger in 2025 than it was in 2022. Basically, it encourages or requires 2 heat pumps for space heating and water heating versus 1. So there is sort of this hope that will get more people to build all electric, but again, they're not required to. There's always an alternative pathway. And so I'm sort of like, why take the chance? If we have an opportunity to strengthen the code for new construction, just reducing the number of buildings that aren't all electric is a good thing that I think we should pursue, if it's within the bandwidth of the city to do so.
What would you propose then as your motion?
My motion would be that we recommend that the city pursue an energy performance code, the AC to heat pump, and the flex path as amendments to the state code. And also, and then sort of commit to looking at more closely at building performance standards and the building emission savings ordinance next year, or once the building codes are adopted. And that the city formally oppose AB 306.
You're definitely gonna have to repeat a lot of that. Let me just share my
Yeah.
screen, unless you got a lot of it.
I got a sizable portion, but I think the sharing of the screen is a good idea.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
connected, so
Okay, no problem.
maybe just one clarification, because did you mention the pre-wiring, or was pre-wiring excluded?
I happy to have pre-wiring sort of tied in with energy performance code, or maybe separate if it needs to be separate, but I guess. Yeah, I think. Pre-wiring. Is for new construction, right? Or, no,
Doesn't have.
It's like if a panel, right now, it's if a panel is being
Right.
upgraded.
right? Yeah, I think we should have that as well.
Maybe we can fill in some of the gaps here. Motion is second, recommending that the city pursue an energy performance.
For new construction.
Mhm,
Is it energy performance code?
mhm.
And that was including pre-wiring. Requirements, no, okay.
I think pre-wiring is a separate one,
Yeah, I guess it's separate.
unless it goes with the flex path as one option.
For existing buildings? Yeah. I think there was also the AC to heat pump.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And water pump, right?
I don't think he mentioned anything for the heat pump water heaters. Was there something you were thinking about?
We should go for both, heat pump, AC and water heater too.
If you're replacing your water heater, it has to
Yeah.
be a heat pump.
Yeah.
Is that happening already as part of the Bay Area?
That goes into effect in 2027.
So we could potentially do it now to strengthen that and get everyone ready. Is that what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I can put it in there, but one of the challenges is the lawsuit with Berkeley and California Restaurant, like we can't prohibit building owners from using gas appliances. And so if we say they have to use a heat pump for the water heater, we're prohibiting them from using a gas appliance. But
Which
for
would
the
be-
air conditioner, there's no gas air conditioners. So
Right.
by making them install a heat pump, they're not prohibiting them from
Right,
using
and
gas.
all of these concepts have alternative pathways or flexible pathways. The water heater, there isn't, that I'm aware of, an alternative pathway sort of ordinance. So that's why I didn't include it.
But you did mention the zero NOx
Yes.
piece, which is getting at the same
Yes,
end result. But I
but
didn't.
that rule does
quite
go into
hear
effect in
that.
2027, so
So maybe
if
we
we
should-
wanted to like not make this too much, then
Yeah.
I would be okay leaving that out because it's only a year.
A bit of a risky one that. Yeah, it may not be popular.
Even that rule is probably gonna be looked at, in some different ways. For FlexPath, do you want to say remodels instead of existing buildings? Or major remodels? I think that was what was in the presentation.
Yeah.
Say major, yeah,
Yeah.
perfect,
Mhm.
yeah.
I wanted to find that a little better, in terms of what, like square footage or something like that.
Or would we have an opportunity to weigh in on that in September after
September,
you
yeah.
get some direction from city
Yeah.
council?
It's kind of a broad.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so for new construction, energy performance code. Existing buildings, ACD heat pump and FlexPath. And then after we get through this building code cycle, look at the building performance standards. And the building energy savings ordinance, yeah. Okay, I feel like that kind of covers everything. We talked about.
Yeah, that's stated in alignment with what I was thinking.
All right,
Any,
is that a motion made?
then yes, I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Chair McKenna and a second by Commissioner Headley, recommending that the city pursue an energy performance code for new construction and pre-wiring, air conditioner, heat pump, and flex path codes for major remodels of existing buildings. Commit to looking more closely at the building performance standards and building energy savings ordinance
So it's
options.
a little, actually. The air conditioner to heat pump, I don't want it to be construed as only for major remodels. That's whenever,
Okay, let's see. Let's take that out then.
Yeah, because pre-wiring isn't necessarily for major remodel either, right? It's anytime the panel's being upgraded.
The thresholds are, we're open to exploring those as well, so.
could we say? Maintain the city's existing pre-wiring ordinance, or were you thinking that
Maintain it,
pre-wiring
yeah.
ordinance needs to be enhanced?
It needs to be enhanced.
It needs to be enhanced,
Yeah.
okay. So maybe an enhanced pre-wiring
Mm.
ordinance? I'd put a comma after new construction.
Wonder if like bullets would just be.
I was having the same thing.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
I wonder if
I
that
think I would
second
make
bullet,
flex path a new bullet.
yeah, me too.
Beautiful. Oops.
Oh, I'm feeling so much clearer now.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Pursue, let's see, building.
Right. On the opposition to AB 306, it's sort of a time-sensitive matter, so it kind of needs to happen in the next few weeks, 2 weeks maybe. So
Are we now going in priority order with these bullet points?
well, I just wanted to make sure that the letter opposing the bill needs to happen quickly.
I'm gonna put a deadline on that.
Would a deadline help, council?
Sure, yeah, I think it was,
And I would
June
say no
8th.
later than next Friday. Do we have a council meeting before?
I think we're the next Tuesday, right?
27th.
Yeah, then,
Yeah, maybe we can come and
Should we
request
draft
it in person.
something?
so maybe, city, agree to formally,
it has. to
help me with
match
this, the letter needs to be sent to the legislature by the end of May.
Okay.
Is there something they could sign on to?
There are.
Maybe that would be an easier way to.
Yeah, well. That's an option. I think a letter formally opposing would be more powerful than a sign-on letter.
Just wonder if it would help to. Put something in front of them to say,
Mhm.
here's what we're proposing you send, and you can edit it. Rather than them starting from scratch last minute.
It would need to be agendized. And that agenda goes out on Thursday.
Tomorrow.
To-
So you guys
That's
get
tomorrow.
a letter, maybe from someone in this room.
Would you say that again?
Would it be helpful if someone in this room drafted a letter for you to put on the agenda?
I think we have the letters.
Great.
Yeah, someone in this room has.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a matter of process and like what the council reviews typically. Okay, so motion by Chair McKenna and a second by Commissioner Headley recommending that the city pursue submitting a letter by June 10th to the California State Legislature formally opposing AB 306, an energy performance ordinance for new construction, an enhanced pre-wiring ordinance, a flex path ordinance for major remodels of existing buildings, an air conditioner to heat pump ordinance whenever an air conditioner is being installed. What do they want me to do here? Is installed? Yeah. Building performance standards and building energy saving ordinance options after adopting amendments to the 2025 code. Any changes to this, or do we have? Well, I guess we can't change it because we have a motion and a second, so we'll go into voting. And if you don't agree, we can amend and then vote again.
Or you have a comment?
I was just wondering, so the initial recommendation was to provide a prioritized list. So is this list reflective of the
Priority.
motioner's priority?
You mean, are you asking, are these in order of priority?
Yeah.
No,
Oh, shall we put them in order of priority?
if
It
that's
seems like the
required,
letter is separate
I kind of feel like,
Requested.
Is the letter, it's gonna be a separate thing, right, on the agenda separately.
Right, and then bullets 2, 3, 4, 5 are all part of the building code. Right, update that we would wanna do.
Yeah.
And then the last bullet is later. So it's really a question of 2 through 5 bullets.
My suggestion would be that we put AC to heat pump number 2. Flex path number 3. Energy performance and then pre-wiring.
Cool.
I'm open to disagreement.
Thank you.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
And we're in agreement that these are for all types of buildings.
Yes, well, the state code already requires AC to heat pump for commercial buildings. So that's sort of specific to residential.
Just the single family and duplex residential wasn't included.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do we need to get to that level of detail on building types, or is this good enough for now?
This is good enough for now. I think it's understood,
Mhm.
that for every building type we should apply.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As far
It's
as it is
important to
possible.
hear, though, that new construction is just as important for this commission as existing buildings.
I just realized there's no mention of this being in priority order. Is that something we could? Thank you.
Great, okay, we'll go into voting.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go in order that you're seated. Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome.
Yes.
So moved, with 2 absent. Thank you for helping us get through that. It'll be really important as we.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for the presentation and the information. And the guidance.
Yeah, and then, we'll circle back with the chair on kind of the first item,
Okay.
just as far as process, to not avoid, or to avoid Brown Act violations. Okay,
D6.
go ahead, John, on D6 when you're ready.
No computer. Apologies for the delay. We will now move on to item D6, discuss Environmental Quality Commission report out to City Council and the 2025-2026 work plan and form a subcommittee to develop the work plan. For this item, staff will introduce the topic and the EQC can take an action.
Awesome, thank you for that setup. So tonight I'll be recommending that the Environmental Quality Commission select a presenter for the EQC annual report out to the City Council and establish a subcommittee to develop the annual work plan. A little bit of background on the report out. Every commission makes an annual report out by the end of August of the calendar year. This presentation's at the beginning of the meeting, and it's an opportunity for the commission to share status report, request direction, or share additional recommendations to the City Council. It can include what has happened in the past year, upcoming plans, or something specific that the advisory body would like to relate to City Council. The EQC is scheduled to deliver the presentation on August 26th, and it's typically about 5 to 10 minutes. The presenter is responsible for developing the slides, but we have templates from previous years that we can share. And the presenter can be the chair, vice chair, any commissioner. In my most recent memory, it's always been the chair. So that's kind of the first piece. And then the second piece is the work plan development. And I know kind of at this point in the year, it's hard to look into the crystal ball of what's gonna happen next year, but it's really important to have a clear and focused work plan that we can all kind of look to month after month. to keep our agendas moving swiftly and make sure we're making progress on priority areas in the CAP. And so the EQC has an opportunity to form a subcommittee to develop the work plan. And, you know, Ori and I and Liz are happy to meet with that subcommittee to, you know, be your note takers, help get everything formatted into the work plan. And that will be approved ultimately by city council as well. The work plan must include the annual goals, the topics and presenters for EQC meetings, EQC role, the list of active ad hoc subcommittees, and then scheduled out regular annual items, such as the election chair, vice chair, city arborist report, and so forth. And we'll need to have this work plan approved during or before the August 20th EQC meeting. So we have June and July and August for the subcommittee to come back to the EQC and ask for feedback on various drafts. So it can be an iterative process over the next couple of months to make sure we're capturing everything that we need to for 25-26. The work plan will be again approved by city council. There's no presentation required as part of this. And really the city council only sees the first page, which includes the goals and, you know, some of the work plan history. It doesn't include all of those subcommittees. And so there's an example of the first page that's approved by city council. And so keeping it really short, we can answer any questions during the discussion time or clarifying questions, but it'd be great tonight if we could select a presenter for the annual report out and then establish a subcommittee to develop the annual work plan.
Okay, thank you. That. There more? No, okay. Are there any clarifying questions before we take public comment from commissioners? No, okay. Ms. Laundrie, do we have any public comment on this item?
I don't see, oh, let me open up public comment. If you're in the room, you can hand Ori or myself a card. If you're online, you can hit the raise hand button. If you're calling in, you can press *9. I don't see any hands online or cards in the room, so we can close public comment.
Okay, great. We can open it for discussion. In the interest of time, I'm happy to do the presentation if the commission's okay with that. And I'm happy to be a participant in the work plan subcommittee.
That's fine.
I don't want to be the only one.
Yeah.
I can join you.
Great.
I think the work plan is a great way to, for newer people to really like just dive in and learn about all the things.
And we can't have more than 3 on the subcommittee for
Yeah.
quorum reasons. So we have,
And I don't have to be on it, like if Jack or Nicole, commissioners, Angel or Meyer. The other commissioners that aren't here aren't able to put their name in. So
correct. So they can give input during.
Yeah.
The future council meetings.
I'd be happy to. I just have one little conflict that I'm not gonna be here for the next meeting, so I don't know if that causes issue or,
I don't-
Most of the work happens before.
yeah. And, you know, we'll be away for a little bit in that window of time, but.
So we have
We have 3
Commissioner
then.
Hernandez and Jill and Commissioner McKenna, Chair McKenna.
Awesome. And I'll note too, something I didn't have on here is we'll also want to use that work plan as a guide to help us pick which meetings should be at the Bellhaven Community Campus.
Oh, great.
So that'll be an important part of developing it. Okay, so I heard, well, I guess we should have a motion. And I can start typing out what I've heard so far. For Chair McKenna to complete the annual presentation to City Council. And to form a 25-26 work plan development ad hoc subcommittee with Chair McKenna, Commissioner Hernandez, and Commissioner Angel. Does anyone want to make a motion? And I can share my.
Okay, I make the motion.
Okay. Second. Okay. A motion by Commissioner Hernandez and a second by Commissioner Angel to select Chair McKenna to complete the annual presentation to City Council and to form a 2025-26 work plan development ad hoc subcommittee with Chair McKenna, Commissioner Hernandez, and Commissioner Angel. Okay, we will vote now.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Awesome. So moved with 2 absent.
And we will now move on to agenda item E, reports and announcements. We can now hear reports and announcements from both staff and commissioners. Would staff like to start?
Sure. I have a few updates and then Ori, you wanna go?
Mhm.
On May 26th Memorial Day, City Hall will be closed, so that's this Monday. I want to share some activities in June. On June 4th, Liz and I will be going out with code enforcement officers to do a leaf blower detail, so we'll be looking for gas leaf blowers in the community and just want to give some public notice around that.
What was the date again?
June 4th. So that's something we just want people to be aware of. That we will be looking for that and providing education to folks using gas leaf blowers. We are developing yard signs about the ordinance. If you would like one, let me know.
Okay, number one.
Cool. And then in June, we have our annual advisory body training and appreciation event, and I encourage everyone to go. You are required to go every 2 years, but it's always a great refresher to understand the Brown Act, kind of our meeting rules and ethics. And then the last hour from 6:30 to 7:30 is really appreciation. So for outgoing commissioners and incoming commissioners to really celebrate your service there.
Would you be letting commissioners that are required to go know?
We can let you know, yeah,
What was the date on that again?
June 12th.
What time?
5:30 to 7:30 in the chambers. And it sounds like we could all use a little refresh on who needs to go, so we'll just send an email to everybody confirming that. And then Saturday, June 14th is the city's annual Juneteenth celebration, 12 PM in Kelly Park. And we'll have a sustainability booth, so stop by for the fun day. And then our next meeting's on June 18th. Pause there. Go for it.
Okay.
There you go.
I won't go into too much detail, but I think we alluded to this. There's exciting things happening related to Cat 5. So with the Bellhaven Child Development Center electrification project and the city moving forward with coordinating construction for the solar installations. And yeah, I would say like the other thing that we've been doing that we've mentioned a little bit is working with the partners through the county-led RICAPS group and sharing resources. And so I think the commission appreciates knowing that we are working with the other neighboring cities. And one of the things that we're developing is an EV charging infrastructure resource hub to help make it easier for staff to hopefully shorten the timelines from idea to implementation of EV charging projects.
Awesome.
Pause there. Stop there.
Does staff have an update on the home upgrade program?
Oh, sure. It's going to city council next week. Along with a Zelly informational update. So both will be info items. And so I'll share that as the agenda is published tomorrow. Yeah, is there specific?
No, just curious how the program's progressing and if they're seeing more participation or.
Yeah, so fortunately, we have some great community advocates. So we've gotten about 5 or 6 leads in the last few days from one of our Bellhaven residents. But honestly, as you'll read in the staff report, there's been kind of a slow uptake in getting registrants. PCE has had some administrative difficulties with Franklin. CRC staff have been out of the office, so April was kind of a slow month, which is unfortunate since it's Earth Month. But we did release yesterday our RFP to community-based organizations for the rental electrification kit program. And we are working and contracting with a strategic communications firm that can help us build a jazzier campaign and reach more folks. We're also developing a door hanger that we're hopeful some of our community volunteers can help us hand out through canvassing.
Any announcements, reports from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Headley?
From 350 Silicon Valley, the Menlo Park Climate Team. So the first thing is that it's an open to community members. So this is, for anyone here, but also, if you're listening and just a member of the community. We meet monthly, and this next month, we're meeting on June 4th at 7 p.m. at the Bear Bottle Brewing Company. So if you're interested in getting more involved in climate actions, you're welcome to join us. And then two, Commissioner or Chair McKenna and I had talked about a whole bunch of things to reduce plastic usage back in January. And so with the 350 team, we're looking at, piloting / deploying party packs for the upcoming, summer season, where we'll have reusable plates and cups and utensils to reduce the amount of waste and the amount of plastic entering into the earth stream. So that's exciting and coming soon.
Anything else?
Well, I wanted to comment on the Love the Earth event. It was a really great event. There was a lot of participation there. They had a lot of good food and a lot of different vendors providing like different information, and yeah, so it was nice having that event up in heaven.
Can't believe that happened in the last month. It feels like so long ago.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Commissioner Hernandez. There was a lot of involvement from folks in this room in making it happen, so appreciate you sharing that recognition.
Yeah, I guess one other thing on sort of going back to the plastic subcommittee presentation, there's an effort to get a refilling station into our community, so there's an interested vendor that's looking to explore that possibility, so fingers crossed that might be a reality at some point, but very early days in the process. All right, with that, we'll move on to agenda item F, informational items. Our next item is informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the EQC in staff's efforts to provide updates. Informational items are not action items. However, city council, staff, or members of the public may ask questions or make comment. Are there questions or comments from the EQC on informational item F1, 2024-25 Environmental Quality Commission Work Plan?
Is this where we wanted to update
I think we did that
the
already.
sustainability?
We got it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing none others. Ms. Lander, do we have any public comment on this item?
Sure. I'll open up public comment for item F, informational items. F1, 24-25 Environmental Quality Commission Work Plan. If there's any public comment in the room, you can hand me a card.
No.
None. All right. If you're online, you can raise your hand. No cards, no hands. We can close public comment.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.
And let me